Greetings, lords and ladies. Making sure that the stream is solid. Judah will be joining us in about 10 minutes. Everything seems right. Okay. Today, we're going to be discussing two podcasts. One from the Portal podcast with Eric Weinstein, and he had this special guest, and I can't even remember his name off the top of my head. I'm going to have to look it up. And he's talking about cultural change over time and how a system can seem like it's never going away, and then in the blink of an eye, all of a sudden, everything changes, and it's like the emperor's new clothes. All it takes is one person to point out that there's nothing going on, that there is no like boogeyman or evil on the other side of freedom from whatever this regime is. And as soon as one person does that, then the whole thing just kind of falls apart. So I think it's pretty pertinent for all of us wherever we are feeling, I don't know, like oppressed or restrained or repressed. Like there is, I think a lot of these systems that are so frustrating have their shelf life is actually past, and it's just a matter of people standing up and saying, I don't have to do this. It's just Plato's cave times a bajillion. There's just tons of these infrastructures that only are flying on faith, basically. Man, this chair is making so much noise. It's about time for a new one, I guess. Today, greetings, Unkush. How are you doing? Tonight, I'll actually be a guest on the Perfume Nationalist podcast, and this will be the scent that we are discussing along with Final Fantasy VI. Now, they're not broadcasting this live, so check back in to my Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I haven't been updating on YouTube at all, so follow Ford Like the Car on Twitter for updates, because that's about all I'm using these days. The goal is to get back into YouTube pretty soon, but other than these live things, that's all I'm doing. But anyways, Perfume Nationalist podcast, that'll be this week. So what Jack does on the Perfume Nationalist podcast is he'll pair a cultural artifact, usually a movie, sometimes it's music, and this is the first time. I think it's the first time. They've discussed Silent Hill before tangentially, but I think this is the first time that they've had an episode that is focused on a video game. Hold on, Judah's messaging me. One second. And so he's pairing Final Fantasy VI with this particular scent, which is called Maresiala. I have no idea what this is. Italian, maybe? Maresiala Santa Maria Novella for women and men. And it's quite beautiful. It's very nice. So it makes me think of my grandmother, but in a different way. It's not something she wore. It's a place. And so I'll probably discuss that on the podcast, what it makes me think of. But it's his whole experience with the Perfume Nationalist has been really not eye-opening. It's been olfactory opening. It's just this whole art form that I've just been not the opposite of blissful, just NPC-fully unaware of this whole time. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's been a lot of fun. Greetings. How are you doing this morning?
Greetings.
Whoa. Okay, hold on. I always get tripped up on Streamlabs new.
So, have you seen StreamYard?
StreamYard? No, I haven't.
That's what I use now, StreamYard, and the professional or the upgrade where you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
You can just connect it to Streamlabs.
Oh yeah. Wait. So what? It's called StreamYard.
Yeah.
StreamYard.
StreamYard, and if you don't, if you don't pay for it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty much like OBS without doing all the stuff.
Pretty much like OBS without doing. Oh, so it's an easier user interface.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's just for dummies, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm the PC guy, not the Mac guy. I'm not smart enough to be Linux, but I'm too smart for these simple interfaces.
You sound a lot like that video or that podcast I just watched.
Oh, the Eric Weinstein one.
He sounds that's my biggest complaint with Eric Weinstein. He says a lot of the same things that Jordan B. Peterson says, but he says it in such a pretentious way. Oh. These morons. Low.
I don't know.
Such a moronic way of looking. I'm so much better than those two morons.
I mean, doesn't it sound just like me?
No. Close, but no.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man, now I look like I got the white balance in this is just. I either look washed out or I look like I got a sunburn. Hold on.
Just put the contrast up a little bit. I don't know.
I'll take the color into now it looks like maybe I'll just go black and white today. Keep it real rustic.
Ooh. I'll go black and white.
JK, no. We'll have to have like a special episode where we do some old movie marathon. Did I ever tell you about that? We did the 24-hour film marathon. You saw that video, right? Where we did the 24-hour film marathon a few years back.
Yeah.
We should do that. You want to do it? Yeah. 24-hour film marathon. We could do it on Twitch or something and live stream our reactions as we try to stay awake and develop dementia. Yeah. It's a real. This is horrible. What is happening? Okay.
What's wrong?
Yeah, just this color. I mean, I look like I'm anemic or a lobster.
Well, you're talking to me like I can see. I don't know, man. I see a black screen with your little digitized ninja guy there.
All right, I think that'll be good enough for now. We'll let the chat and then we'll dive into the stuff. Hello, everyone, this morning. Christopher, it's been 2 months, buddy. How have I been? We're hanging in there. Work is work and life is life. We're so close to moving into this.
That's what I was
trailer. So close. We just have to paint one more set of baseboards and then we can get in there. And I think I'm still going to be using this room for streaming for a while, for the foreseeable future.
That makes sense. I mean, unless you can get better internet here other place.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this has been, except for that a couple hiccups, it's been pretty user-friendly. Orton says nose opening. Yeah, so I was sharing this Santa Maria, Marciala Santa Maria Novella scent, and it's this fragrance is very, the guys across the street, the Alabama boys, they say it smells like Fireball, or for the non-alcoholics, cinnamon, but the Fireball's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm starting to be able to understand a little more. Cinnamon is not what hits me, but I couldn't put a name on it, and so it's got all these cool. I think the cedar is what hits me. Yeah, I like it a lot. It's, but I'll talk about it more when we get on that podcast.
So you know what I've been doing?
What's that?
We've got just this generic soap that we refill our little soap dispensers. We get 2 bathrooms, and I've been taking different essential oils, and trying to come up with a really good soap scent. And I think and not only, but see, I'm not just using essential oils. Also, I vape, or used to. And so
really? You vape?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, I worked with a vape shop.
I can't imagine that. Oh.
And so I take all these like vape juices and I mix it in there to add a little extra like whipped cream smell, or like extra coffee smell, like stuff you can't get with essential oils.
Fascinating. Wow. So yeah, we're taking our own scent journeys one day to I'm just going to keep pressuring Jack, the perfume nationalist, to start experimenting with his own. He's got such a good nose and can actually explain all this stuff to the normies, and to get him to make his own stuff.
Pair it with wine?
No, he pairs it with cultural artifacts. So like a film, the TV show, music, and so and the parallels are really it's just interesting, man. Yeah. I think it'd be cool. So play some Final Fantasy while wearing this. Heidel says, Ford, what are you holding on to? Is it?
You gotta watch Heidel. You gotta watch that guy. He's like most geniuses, two ends of the spectrum.
Indian Aussie, how you doing? And we got a Periscope on a 16-hour car ride, so hopefully we'll keep your attention.
Well, we're not
stay
gonna
awake
do it for 16 hours.
No, that's true.
That's the 20 when we do the 24-hour
24-hour film marathon. Then we can do the 16-hour car ride. Well, stay awake. What do you do when you're on a long car ride, Judah? Do you imbibe? No, I mean, as far as you stop at the gas station and get terrible things for you that are rotting your teeth, because that's what I always do.
Yep.
I
have a can in my car right now. But when I vaped, it sort of mitigated for that.
Ooh, actually, I could see that. Yeah. I would always get hot tamales, those sour bright worms, peach rings. And then when I was really feeling tired, those mega warheads, those sour mega warheads. Yeah, I tell you, basically things that are torturous. That's what I started getting more and more torturous to try to wake my. And then it's constantly smacking myself, and then you get progressively harder.
Yeah. And then, I can't see you right now, but were you slapping your face or were you slapping? Yeah. I have started slapping my arm as hard as I can. I can get a lot more like. There's a certain limit to how much I can slap my face, but my arm, like I could bruise it.
That's a good idea.
And then
the thing it doesn't even work though. After a while, you're still just like I don't know. Strategies.
You got to be talking to somebody. Call somebody up.
Yeah, that's true.
Even
talking is good.
Podcasts can sometimes lull me into like
maybe that could be the new genre. Like after ASMR, it's like the stay awake video where it's like Dora, where it's like call and response. It's like, hey listeners, what do you think about this? You're such an idiot. And it's just like this. It's almost like a stress-inducing thing. Like, eventually, when the Internet of Things really kicks in, you'll like have shock stuff. Yeah. When you get the answer wrong, it's just gonna be like it's like
you run off the road. You're like, oh.
Heidel says, hi, Christmas light guy.
Hey. Christmas cathedral, baby.
You guys are a cute couple. Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're a cute couple. He's 120760HF on Periscope. We're. Oh, actually, I got a picture. Let me get this picture.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah.
See if I can show this.
I love that picture.
See if I can show this on. Hold on 1 second.
What? So this was Hillbilly Night, right?
Hillbilly Night. Yeah. What did we call that?
I can't remember. Fall Festival, maybe.
Were you with me that time? Were you in the car when I took the wrong way home?
No.
And we got locked in the state park, Tougaloo State Park.
No, I was not.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah. So we got locked in. I was covered in mud. I think it was me, Lauren, and. Man, who else was with me? Jared or Colin? I don't know. Somebody. Yeah. And we turned in because we thought Tougaloo was the same as Tallulah Gorge, and that we would come out on the other side. And and they locked the gate behind us after we came in. Apparently, like 5 minutes after we came in. So I had to go and knock on the caretaker's house, and I'm covered in mud. And the guy was so mad. These stupid college kids. Why'd we ever let this college be here?
Wow.
Okay, let's see if I can add a source real quick.
This is the night, if I'm not mistaken, that I think this is. We had this is when we did the mud wrestling. This is when you got lost, right?
The same night, yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. Boop, doop, boop.
Man, dude. I wish I could be that fit again.
Oh, well, you can.
No.
Dude. Yeah, no problem. No problem. There it is. So there's me and Judah way back in the day. Yeah, back in
Like
we
the
were
thing
all
is,
thin, and you were hairy.
oh
And
yeah, I'm
I
not hairy
was,
anymore. Yeah, I'm still hairy. I was less hairy then. Wow.
yeah,
So the thing is the thing I've realized about old age that I never really thought about is your body morphs in ways like I'll never be able to get my body to look like that again. You know,
right.
certain things, jowls and things that don't go back.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We just got to take a more. We're trying to be dignified in our old age, right? Just we got to be dignified. Gyro says, "How do you guys don't fall asleep? Because sometimes in a movie, a slow-paced scene can knock you out." Oh, in the 24-hour film marathon, yeah, we did it. Like I did not fall asleep that whole time. And
A lot of caffeine.
oh yeah, and we did Cuarón and Del Toro at the time. So we watched because it was the year that Pacific Rim and Gravity or whatever was coming out. I can't remember. So we watched all of their films back to back almost, and we got to A Little Princess. That one, like Cuarón did it, but it was just a genre studio film. Oh god, I wanted to die. It was awful.
We should, even if we don't do 24-hour, we should watch a video together. Me, you, maybe Steven. Like, remember the good old days we used to do our own little
Oh yeah, like the Mystery Science Theater
Mystery Science
kind of deal.
Theater.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing utilizing YouTube's Premiere feature, so where you can watch your own videos with your audience. You can basically it's like, yeah, it's the premiere, it's the reveal, and you can watch it together. So when I come back on YouTube in full force, then I'll start doing that again. Cook Easy asks, how's the day going? Yeah, here we are. We're doing it. Henry is pressuring for league, peer pressure.
Man,
it's coming back, baby. We're almost there. We only got 3 weeks left. We're real close.
That's more than pressure. That's getting a little ridiculous, Henry. Come on.
Bro. Ford, I'm going to El Tunco next month. Left-handed waves are a blessing. I never heard of that one, dude. El Tunco.
You've never heard of El Tunco?
Yeah, shut it. It's in El Salvador. I never even thought about El Salvador as a travel destination for surf. Nicaragua is the big thing for our local guys. Everyone's going to Nicaragua.
That's where my sister lives.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
She's a missionary in Nicaragua.
Oh, wow. Okay. SS, sleep on the wheels. Okay. Peach rings are playful. Kappa. All right. So that takes up to date. To start. Yes, I noticed. All right. So let's jump in. So this week I actually wanted to start off with reading something from a viewer, longtime viewer. And it's a little bit long for the podcast. I think I'll probably edit a bit, to get to kind of the high points. But I want y'all here live to hear the kind of whole story. Last week, me and Jared were talking about holding on, and we were talking specifically about the movie The Mist, and how even though it's a cheesy, disaster movie with some terrible CG baddies, the ending really worked for both of us because it was a good metaphor for suicide and suicide prevention. So with all that in mind, a longtime viewer wrote this. It's a bit long, but I think hopefully we all can resonate with this at various points in our life. So he says, I was in second year of primary school. In homework, there was just a shape of an apple and I had to fill the red color. I asked my mother if I could draw a little house. She said no. She refused because there were no extra papers or now, and one other thing about this individual. So he's from India, and that does come into play, I think, in terms of cultural understanding. So he asked if she could draw a little house. She said no. She refused because there were no extra papers, and she didn't have more time for me. I went and sat in a position where she couldn't see, and I drew a little house inside the apple. I kept looking at it for a while and eventually filled it in with the red color. This is my earliest memory of the creativity itch. My entire school life, all my notebooks were more filled from backside with random patterns and mathematical chaos. In middle school, I was sent to extra tuition classes, and the teacher there was super strict and he changed me totally. I could not do my random sketches, and later on there was no time, and I got slowly sucked into the labor of studying where it was all mechanical. I think during that time I began to be depressed. Creativity is a hell of a thing, man. It's a blessing for people who do not have other battles nor have any survival concerns. That's why everywhere I go for any art event or film event, it's always the youngsters from the top 1% of rich people. I'm not blaming anyone in this, I'm just articulating it as I see it. Creativity and the fight for survival is the recipe that kills people. That's the deadly mix-up. When I had my recent epilepsy attack and I was told by the doctors that I'll have to be on the hellish meds again, and this time I'll have to be on them for life. Think about it for a second. You have two choices. Either take chance that the epilepsy attack won't repeat for 4 more years, and even if it does, hope that it won't be fatal. Or take medicines, that is 1,000 milligrams twice a day, and you will not have more than 3 to 4 hours per day where you can focus on a certain task. You will feel dizzy, and you will feel extreme anxiety and depression, mood swings, and insomnia. Taking that med is like wearing a bulletproof jacket that keeps my brain from going beyond a certain point, but it still does not assure that the episode won't occur, so the possibility of a fatal epilepsy attack is still there. So I sat down with my parents and told them my decision of not taking the meds. I seriously cannot spend another 4 years being on the meds in hope for being clear. My dad retires in 2021. He is 56 right now, and he's the only source of income. I turned 24 this year, and at my age, my father was providing to a house of 9 people by himself because my grandfather never stayed for a job because of his insane hunger for painting and sculpting. So me pursuing something related to art reminds my father of his father and what a known failure he was. So for me personally, this is like the big thing that Melissa always worries about. You know, I've told her the story about George MacDonald. He was like a by the church in his area considered to be a heretic. He was a pastor, and so they're like, this guy's too weird, and they just basically said you can't be a pastor. And so he started writing, and he wrote a lot of these fantasy stories, children's stories. But it was one of those things that it never. He was a working writer. He made enough money to support his 19 kids. But because they had so many kids, I think they were just barely at like just above subsistence level. And so she has this. I think it's not as bad as it seems, but she's always thinking you're going to be like George MacDonald, and we're just going to be like your writing and your creativity is just not going to be there. So there's always that worry for the people who are more what is the word? More practical. Like Melissa's been doing the Enneagram. I'm not the biggest fan of personality tests. I think they're all.
I'm a Cancer.
They're all bogus in my opinion, but Melissa's into it. I mean, we have both benefited from some of these things that we've taken. And so she's the 9, which is basically the jack of all trades, and is much more concerned with avoiding obstacles and just keeping things peaceful. And of course, I'm like the opposite of that.
Peacemaker.
Yeah, she's like the peacemaker. And so she has that sort of mentality like an Indian father who has seen artists go off the rails. And so she just wants to make sure that everything is going to be provided for, you know. And so I think that is, but in truth, it is like playing the lottery, the art, you know, the arts. There's just a lot of times where it's hard to tell that you suck when you're an artist, aspiring or otherwise. Like what separates a success from a failure? There are some people that succeed in the arts that are just terrible. Yeah. And then there are other people who are geniuses that never make anything. So it's
and it's a lot like inventing. Like it takes so much failure to get that one thing that catches on. And
right.
JBP talks about it, you know, how artists, creatives have a scary life to live because there's so much failure involved.
Right. And that's the other reason I want to bring this up today is because of what happened with JBP yesterday, the news breaking that he's been addicted to Klonopin. He checked himself into rehab. Klonopin. And so, you know, they're pretty much dogpiling on him on Twitter and elsewhere. Because, you know, it's like, what a hypocrite. Here he is telling you to get your life in order. The ostensible reason for his drug dependence has been the news of his wife's cancer, her battle with, I'm not sure the specific type of whatever, but it's really, I mean, I have noticed a different change in his tone since that happened. And so people are, I think, you know, dogpiling on him. So I did want to talk about this because a lot of these things, I think the strategies given to us by self-help people that are more from the baby boom gen. Not all, I'm not saying everyone, but there's a tendency to make this formula. Here's your 12 rules for life. Here's your, you think about Dave Ramsey, here's your 7 steps or 9 steps or whatever it is to get out of debt. Like it's always the steps. When we were in college, like there was that Christian thing. There was what was that one? The prayer of Jabez.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Jabez,
and then what is the thing I was just thinking? Oh, experiencing God. There's just these this is the path. And
EE.
Yeah, okay. So there's just a ton of these things. And if you're not a Christian, I think you probably can think of some taking a crap on boomers, but this sort of just formulaic, it worked for me, it can work for you. Yeah. When real life is not out. For instance, I'll never forget, this is the one I keep bringing up with Melissa in the last couple of weeks, when we were at Christian college and the Ludies came. You remember them?
Yeah.
So they came in, for those who don't know, they were basically like these people that, it was this whole craze. It was like the whole anti-dating craze in Christianity at that time. And so they were like, you need to be courting one another. And there was Josh Harris, and it was like, I kiss dating goodbye. And then the Ludies, and they were like, basically, let God write your love story. Anyways, they're Gen Xers, but they had that same mentality that it's just like, this worked for me. Well, it didn't work for Josh Harris because they got divorced.
He might be, yeah.
Oh, right. But either way, it's just like this. I've kind of manufactured this formula that's going to work for everybody, but it doesn't even work for you, And as soon as we've talked about that, how success sometimes reveals you were never ready, and it's like me going back and watching my videos that I made in India. I don't like that guy. Something just doesn't ring true about it. So much of this self-help stuff, the danger with it all is that it's too much of a straitjacket. It's too much of coloring in the lines. It's too much of he's talking about here, coloring the apple red, instead of being an artist. There's something within modern industrial society that just wants to say to creative people, nope, we don't have time for that. We don't have room for that. Just get back in your seat, So, okay, all that aside, the recent event, this is back to our viewers, the recent event has poked a giant hole in my calculation of being able to provide for my parents by the time my dad retires. The unspoken pressure from family is getting real with time. It's all chaos and all immediate family tackling monsters like cancer, paralysis, abusing husbands, and suicides. I wish I had it in me just to walk away and stay unaffected by all this. I wish I had it in me to be able to bear a regular full-time job. Creativity is great for people who can afford it. For those who cannot reach the spot where they can scratch that itch, it turns into this infection of mind that slowly numbs and then drives the person to kill himself. On your recent podcast, The Mist, I've seen Mist during my first year of college and remember being shook by the ending. But for me personally, the way I've seen people kill themselves and the circumstances that drive them to it, it's the two sides of the wall squeezing in, and the person doesn't push hard enough. The wall will swallow. If the person doesn't push hard enough, the wall will swallow the person. And for a suicidal person, it's not the squeezing of the walls, but not having something to push for, not having something to fight for that kills them. I do see myself as someone who can do a whole lot of good, and I recently finished reading Rule 6 of JBP's book, going back to JBP, where he talks about the school teachers and mass murderers and talked about nihilism, and my biggest shock was to learn that Tolstoy had pessimistic thoughts. The struggle of feeling a sense of purpose and not some big profound meaning to life, but just having a set of actions that mean something and has some value. Not having that drives people crazy. In that chapter, JBP talked about how it is not that shocking, how this unfairness of life drives people not only to suicide, but mass murders, and that this is old as the Cain and Abel story. I do not wish to lose the battle, but the odds keep stacking against me, and it keeps stacking. The size of the pile kicks away all previous motivation, and as time moves forward, I am ready to fight, but I feel that the thing that I fight is getting stronger at an unfair pace. I think that's accelerationism in a nutshell. No matter what you do, the system, it's the Borg, it's adapting. As soon as you feel and this is the problem with the whole 12 rules thing, as soon as you have an attack vector, the system, it becomes immune to it. It just,
Well, because we're not fighting the system. We're fighting it. I mean, a lot of it is ourselves. We self sabotage.
That is true, but there does seem to be an almost, it's not conscious or sentient necessarily, but there does seem to be a malevolent force. There's just it just almost it's the poker thing. I keep saying it's sick. It doesn't make sense. Your opponent has pocket aces twice in a row. Like, it just doesn't add up. So he says, I do not aim to be yet another person who ends up being crushed by the deadly mix of creativity and sustainability. Hope that I will last longer than what I'm capable of fighting. We say let's keep going. If we can't do that, then hold on. I say this line needs something that specifies what to hold on to. I'll keep holding on. Wish me luck. So in that movie, they got a revolver with 4 bullets left. In terms of that metaphor, rather than the best for us, for our purposes, the best thing you could do in a similar situation, instead of just assuming the monsters are there because you hear them, you say, well, we can do, there's more than one option here. Wait to die or kill yourself. No, there's other options. Yeah. Like, why not just wait in the car and just see what happens? That's an option. Why not, hey, you know what? Let's go out for one last walk. See what happens. We got the gun here. If worse comes to worse, one of the things gets you, I'll put a bullet in your head when they get you, And how, I mean, it's death by one, death by the other. Let's just go out with a bang, let's go. Let's just see what happens. So that's another option.
Be careful not to take the illusion to real life. Like you're talking right. in the movie.
In the movie. But I'm saying, but you don't necessarily throw the gun away. So right. Like in a sense, hold on to the gun. And that goes back to something that JBP says, like you have your sword. The meek person is the one who knows how to wield his sword but keeps it sheathed. Like keep the thing sheathed. It's not always a fight or flight scenario. Sometimes it's just walking. Most of life is just mundane. And that, man, for the creative person, though, that feels like hell. And it's one of the mundane thing feels worse. And this is why the gun is more tempting. The suicide's more tempting because it seems almost like Pyrrhic, it's this blaze of glory sort of thing. Like, it's almost kind of romantic. You got to shut that thing down. Like, just wait. Because here's the thing. You brought up Tolstoy, and I think it's really important to remember the only good art really comes from hell. Like the only good natural resources come from mining, from going down deep. I keep bringing up like a broken record, but just looking at how we build our houses, it's built out of trash. And so society is turning into trash because we don't have people who are willing to pay the price. And you're paying the price. Like you are going through a refining process that will make your art better. Like when I wrote Building a Better Me, my own self-help book, it just rang hollow when I read it during that hurricane, when I'm staring at 100-mile-an-hour gust coming at the front door and budging it. Like that, this seems pat, it seems glib. So when you go through serious trauma, it's going to imbue your art with something that's useful and meaningful and stands the test of time. So
also, really appreciate him or her reaching out, because I think that, to me, the most creativity comes from it's hard to be Well, you can't be creative without another person to see the result. Without sharing.
Yeah.
Your creative, your creation. You have to share that creation. And and like we've talked about before, there's so much creativity in just communicating and just talking. What was it like? Just like how watching people react to what we say and communicate. There's other ways to be creative than just drawing or making videos. There's relationship creativity.
Right, and I just started reading Camille Pagla's Glittering Images in preparation for just having some better conversations to understand where Jack, the Perfume Nationalist, is coming from. He's a huge Paglia fan, and I've really enjoyed what I've read so far. Her introduction in that book is it's like a clarion call for good art. and what art actually means. It's not this formulaic, stilted linguistic exercise. You know, it's something primal. It's something transcendent. It's something it's like esoteric, but at the same time, like pragmatic in its own way. You know, it has its own language, and it's symbolic. It's metaphorical. And she brings up. I've read a few of the first chapters, but I skipped to the end to read her chapter on Lucas, and like so many people have been trying to communicate to me about why they defend Lucas and the prequels, like reading her justification for Revenge of the Sith, like Paglia, okay, coming at it from an artistic perspective, she goes so far out. Her hot take is she goes so far out to call Lucas the best artist of our generation. And because he's not a dialogue writer, plot is of no concern to him. He is an industrial designer. And if you go back and watch THX 1138, it comes through. His mise en scène, you know, there's the look of the thing, the color, his montage, his editing, his production design. It all ties in when you understand, like he was obsessed with cars as a nerdy kid. Like he ended up winning all these races as hot rod stuff. And if you think about the design, the look, the lines of those, you know, 50s hot rods, they were sexy and but like not in this like reductive svelte way. You know, you think about these things, they were kind of like bodacious, you know? I mean, it's almost like a Renaissance painting of women compared to women today, you know? Like I was looking, someone brought that up on Twitter. Like they said, you know, ladies these days, like e-girls these days, and pictures of all these, you know, thin-waisted, giant boobs, and just all adhering to a very muscular. It's almost like impossible to maintain. You can maintain it for that moment when you take the picture, but you have to like work full time to preserve that, and eventually time is going to catch up with you. You're going to have to preserve that through artificiality, through plastic surgery and whatnot. And then to the right of that showed throughout history depictions of women, and Paglia points out some of this too, some of these old sculptures and things like that from pagan cultures.
Yeah.
What you need? The iPad? Are you looking for the iPad? Okay, I think it's downstairs on the counter, unless Mommy brought it to work. But they got a picture of Venus, you know, the Aphrodite from the Froth one, and like her body type seriously looks like my wife, and like it's a normal female figure that's not like idealized to this absurd degree that's unmaintainable. And so anyways, so much of what Paglia points out there in that is that Lucas saw such lines and saw such beauty in the industrial world at that time, and he took that and applied it to film, and he made ballets basically through space battles in a way that's really Wagnerian. It's really trying to be Wagner. It's not trying to be Star Trek. It's not trying to be Lord of the Rings. It's trying to be Wagner with a very, and if you think about what an opera is, it's very, it's filled with types. It's not really filled with characters that are well-rounded and all that. That's why it's all
it's
archetypal.
Not very subtle.
No, it's archetypal, and so the art comes in the orchestration, the choreography. It comes in the it's not a plot-driven medium. Or dialogue-driven medium.
No, because most of the plots are the same. It just takes the same plot and applies. It's the tenaciousness of the performances that and ornate. The ornate. That's it.
Yeah, it's the ornateness of the whole thing. And so if you look at sonata form, where we got symphonies from, you know, Mozart, Beethoven, and all those after them, they basically took this form, but they imbued it with character and color and tone and richness. And so it wasn't like they needed that straitjacket of the archetype in order to make this incredible, like the pinnacle of art. And so when you think of it like that, I think that's pretty invigorating.
Yeah.
I can't remember where we were going with all that. Hopefully something in there will be useful to our viewer in terms of, but I think one of the big things is that it's very easy for us to be discouraged when we see how easy it is for some people to get their garbage up on the big screen.
Yeah.
And we're like, where's the good stuff? And is there any market for the stuff that I would make anyway? And that's why sometimes it's just not the right time. Like, it's better just to keep honing and refining. I've had this one action scene in my head since 2008 or 9, the first time I heard Mars Volta's Day of the Baphomets. And I've had this chase scene in my head, and over time it's evolved into this heist, action, extraction, getaway, dance, basically. Like, that's the thing that's in my head. And the more, every time I go back and listen to it, and I think I usually get one more little piece of the puzzle in my head. And I think you got to kind of think of art as that. Like, I did like, there was a time where it's a process you can't be forced, but it's almost like one of the Pixar guys, he was talking about Wall-E, Andrew Stanton. I thought this was actually a pretty good metaphor, that an artist is truly like an archaeologist digging up a dinosaur and saying, oh, it must be a T-Rex. Like, oh, wait a minute, no, the pelvis is the wrong way. So you're putting it together over time, and you're not trying to force your will on the thing, to make it, because then you're trying to get at something, but you don't necessarily know what it is.
Right.
So take this time in the mundane, not to have your dreams crushed. And though they feel crushed, that's what happens to diamonds in order to get that coal turned into, a diamond.
Yeah.
Like you got to go through that pressure cooker. And it's easy to talk about, I know, abstractly. It's not easy to live through.
Well, the thing is about Hollywood existence, like living according to Hollywood ideal, is that it's incredibly boring. I had a mentor once. One of the high school kids was like, he said, "You look bored." We were in a group, and the mentor said, "I'm never bored," and he said it in a way that, like, I believed him. And
Right.
because I know how he lives to, like, so that in every relationship, he's looking for the signal and the noise,
Right.
and like, if we don't have, even in the mundane, we can find the signal and the noise creatively. We don't have to be working towards being known in Hollywood to be creative. And I think that's the thing I struggle with.
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
know about if you're.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
I'm like, man, if I'm not succeeding in Hollywood and I'm not being creative, or if I'm not
Getting some
big ideal, notoriety of some
form of
sort.
recognition. Yeah, exactly. Whether it's Hollywood or somebody else, but it's like, if this person would recognize me, then I'm
Right.
justified. Yeah.
But that's not creativity. Creativity is what God has put in us to uncover reality.
I like that. So in Hinduism, they use the term darshan, and it's basically like the best example I can think of, and it's kind of like, it would be interesting to get some Hindus' takes on the Hare Krishna movement, but in America, it's much bigger with Westerners. It's kind of like a culturally appropriated religion. I don't know. That's probably unfair to say. I mean, ISKCON, I think some Hindus like them, some don't. I don't know. It's probably pretty complicated. But I went to an ISKCON temple a couple of times in Atlanta when we were at college, and they simulated that old school Hindu ideal of darshan, where they would have this song building up in tempo, and right at the climactic moment, you could call it the drop, they would open the curtain, and you'd finally see the murti, the statue of the deity or the statue of the saint. In this case, it was probably Prabhupada, it's the Swami that they believe in, and people would all, like, it was like let the bodies hit the floor. It was like a drop. It was like everyone would prostrate before this thing, but there's something primordial in us about that revealing, right? Like we're looking for that that revelation of transcendence. And so that is what I think art should be, is that inception, that's a pop way of thinking about it too. Getting to that point where you get this idea that's planted, that has meme value, that it's just all you see it and you know it. You don't have to, it's not something that's linguistic, and that's so hard for, us who are technologically civilized and literal, to get to, because we want it objective,
Well, and it's particularly hard on our own. My brother-in-law has a fantastic analogy for truth. He says, he's very much against the your truth is your truth is your truth, or we all have our own truths. But he said, like, that you can sort of shift a little bit to the analogy is that we each have a flashlight, and where everything is dark, and we're trying to figure out, we're trying to discover a land, or a place or a building or something, like a treasure, and each one of us illuminates a part of it, and if we get together, the more we get together and shine the flashlight together, the better we see whatever we're trying to look at. And I really like that. I mean, it's simple, but I think it helps when you have somebody else's flashlight making the vision bigger, broadening our vision.
And that's where I think we need more of this dialectic, the whole surfing violinist idea, having two different disciplines. But we need to do that cross. My goal is to become a Renaissance man, like a digital Renaissance man. But the problem with that, I think you've brought this up before, it's like no man is an island, and you can't become an expert at everything. And so you need that cross-pollination, not just between specialties, but between personalities. Different people just have a way that to you will be funny. Like they won't even think they are funny, but it'll hit you right, make you laugh. We need that way to interplay off each other, and we need to have these cross-specialty, cross-cultural, cross-ideological
dialogues,
trade. Yeah, where we're actually benefiting each other.
Yeah, like a trading post.
Yeah,
where we go and we barter.
Yeah. And, you don't want, it's just like that Austrian economist thing, it's like you don't want to eat, it's like you want German engineering for your BMW or Mercedes, and then you want Italian food or French food and Italian music and blah, blah. They just go through this list of things that all these different places are really good at. But you don't necessarily want British food. It's like you're going to go to France for the food or Italy for the food. Food is not the first thing that comes up when you think of Britain in terms of their tradition and culture. So I think each of us has strengths, and that's at a very meta level, at the national level. I mean, we have so many other micro cultures now that have happened over time. I mean, there are specialists that are so masterful at their tiny little area of expertise, and you don't want that to remain in a ghetto, But you need to let them have the freedom to do it their way, instead of coming in and saying, all right, well, this is how the formula works. You're doing this other thing wrong. It's like, well, maybe, okay, for an example, I do listen to Dave Ramsey podcast, where he's basically talking about getting out of debt. It's very like evangelical Christian normie. But what's ironic to me about it is that his musical interludes are always stuff that is totally not evangelical Christian normie. He'll have Radiohead interludes. He'll have some of these. I've heard some of these indie band interludes, and the song opening up his show, which has become probably for a lot of Christians in America synonymous with Dave Ramsey, is "Careless Whisper." Which the saxophone solo.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's great, but you don't get that song without a gay dude. Like, you just don't. Like, that's one of the gayest things ever, and it's fantastic. So just like, if you impose and this is one of my problems too with the moralizing. Christians were the most guilty of this for the longest time, and I still think it happens, or conservatives. It doesn't have to be Christians, but where it's like, oh, this person had this thing that they did wrong. And then they just redact that person from history. It's like, I'm not going to listen to Tchaikovsky because he might have been gay. Like, just what? It's like you don't get 1812 without Tchaikovsky and the person that he was. And so, and speaking to you specifically, the viewer who has written this whole thing, it's like those things, those thorns in the sides that feel so terrible now and are making your life difficult. If you can stay, like, I don't want you to be the tragic artist either, because a lot of those people end up being tragic. They produced fantastic works of art, but their lives ended up in a shambles. You do want to have that fantastic work of art, but come out on the other side, And so I think the nice thing about the time where no one's paying attention to us, the one good thing about that is without all that scrutiny, we may be able to build up resistance mechanisms to when everyone is paying attention to us, so that we don't shipwreck with underneath the spotlight. That, and I've said that before, but that kills more people, man. I mean, even if it doesn't kill them outright, it makes them drug dependent. It makes them, just licentiously dependent. It makes them a drama king or queen. So just try to be ready. Try to take this time as a kind of training regimen, the montage. Like, we skip through the training scenes, we have a montage in Rocky, to get him ready to run up those stairs. Like, no, we're in the montage scene and there is no cutting. And that's the problem. Because when you're like, yesterday, work just seemed like forever. We're putting in this foundation for this addition for a house, and it's just, I don't know. Like, I was just tired of carrying gravel and dirt, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to end. It feels like Sisyphus. That is the problem. We feel like we're in the myth of Sisyphus, but we're not.
And it will end. I think that was the biggest revelation for me later on in life. It always bothered me that pain was so unbearable as a child. And I always go back to when I was in a tub and I got soap in my eyes. And I always wondered, why was that such a horrific experience? And it was because I didn't realize that the pain would end. And the older we get, that's the reason pain is bearable is because we've had experience and we know that we trust in our experience. We trust that it will end. Right. As a kid, it's like, this is forever now, and but we have to remind ourselves. I think there's a maturation process even in our old age, as we are, in our 30s. We have to remind ourselves that this is not forever, and the montage will come. We will look back on it soon,
right,
and look at it as a montage.
And there is a Peter Pan syndrome that we're all stuck in, and I think that's why people like JBP appeal to so many people, is that we're all, no matter how old we are, whether we're white, black, brown, in the middle, east, west, north, south, redneck, west coast, whatever, like wherever we find ourselves as dudes, there is just this tendency just to be in this Peter Pan syndrome. You can blame it on video games, you can blame it on, I don't know, school system. I don't know, blame it on whatever you want, but we all seem to be kind of in this weird thing where there's certain vestiges of our childhood that we should have let go of a long time ago. And for me, that is one of them. It's this, oh man, this isn't going to end. I'm stuck here. It's just this little bratty, it's like, it's going to end. Like, time moves, you idiot. So
it's the shortcut syndrome of our modern age.
That montage thing, man. It's that the music videoification of just like we gotta keep it moving. We gotta cut to the chase.
That's because and our experiences can get muddled and we can confuse. Like, I remember somebody saying, like, where did you see that? Or how do you know that's true? I saw it in my head. I'm like, oh, I saw it in a movie. I don't really know it to be true.
Yeah, we are very impressionable. I like to think how smart I am, but like what we've said before, like you and me, if it's on a big screen, unless we're being very critical, we tend to just like, yeah, that's great, man. Yeah. Just fanboy out with it. I'll hit a little bit of chat. I want to go back to one more thing that our viewer wrote. And we'll move on and talk for the last few minutes about these two podcasts we haven't even mentioned yet. But I thought it would be pertinent, especially in the wake of the JBP news, to talk about this struggle. What are we going to hold on to? Because otherwise, you're going to just fixate on a Ubik, basically. You know, and JBP, it proved like he ended up having to have a Ubik to a blue pill to keep him going forward. I want to say though, I still think I would rather have somebody weekly, depending on the blue pill Ubik, to keep them alive because they're still alive.
Yeah.
And something can happen. Something can happen just to all of a sudden in the blink of an eye, you're like, oh, it makes sense. You know, there's just a puzzle piece you never thought, and it's like darshan. It just reveals itself. You're like, I understand now. That's the revelation you really want to look for. You don't want to go on a vision quest for that thing. You want to live your life, and the pieces start slowly falling. I mean, you keep searching by all means, but just don't make that the prerequisite for living is revelation, right? Like, just keep going, believe. And okay, before I get to Chet, I do want to read this part because I responded to him. I gave him just a couple encouraging words, and not that it wasn't really that big of a deal. But he said something that I thought was like, well, dude, this is perfection. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. In my existential pursuit of meaning and in the failure of finding one, I learned that human existence works on narratives. Believe in a story. Doesn't matter fictional or real, but human existence is growing up listening to stories and acting out the story that fits most to the character. There are old stories that are thousands of years old, and there are new stories that are just a few decades old. And the significance of these stories are biological. It's a data that gets stored just like a small bacterium would be repelled by acid because of the data in its DNA. As time moves on, new variables get introduced to the data storage, and the stories become more and more complex. Some constructive stories are an attempt to assure that the life on this blue dot will last to its fullest potential, and there are destructive stories that attempt to eradicate the conscious life and aim to go back to how things were before life came to be. So a thing to hang on to could be the hope of a new variable. That's it. The magic of genetic memory and sorcery of muscle memory, combined with randomness of creative chaos, should never be taken for granted. And that's synthesizing a lot of what we've been talking about here. Yeah. The whole becoming human idea. You know, what does it even mean to be human? Like we're just a collection of remembered genetic material. The magic is genetic memory and sorcery of muscle memory. I love that. I love that terminology. I don't know if you coined that term, dude, but the sorcery of muscle memory is great because it calls us back. We're all pagans here. I don't care what religion you claim to. We're all pagans. And most of us have forgotten some of the good things that a pagan culture has, and that is this muscle memory. There's nothing verbal about it. There's nothing verbal about it. When you try to put it into words, you can't do it anymore. It's like I was playing softball a few years ago with the boating rental company that I work with, and they had like a local softball league. And I was terrible. I was in the outfield, and I would drop the ball like every time. I was like, man, what's happened to me? I used to be like coordinated, you know. And the few times that I caught like a running catch, you know, it's because your brain shuts off. You're all feeling, and you know exactly what you need to do. Your mind is doing this complex calculus, folks. It's complex calculus, taking in wind resist, all through feeling, all through just sheer muscle. It's who knows, and you get it, and you make the catch. And David Foster Wallace talked about this in an essay. I think it was called String Theory, in which he's talking about how banal. This is one of the stories I'll bring up all the time. But how banal it is to listen to some sports player, some athlete explain how they won. Well, I just stuck to the fundamentals. Blah blah blah. They say the same thing every time. They cannot articulate how they did it.
No, the best ones aren't using their brain.
Inarticulate. Inarticulate.
Yeah.
There's a scene in this not good, what's his name, Kevin Costner movie called Love the Game. And there was this conceit in the film that every time he'd get up on the mound, he'd say, clear the mechanism, and everything goes whoosh, and he can't hear anything. Can't hear the crowd at all. Is it clear the mechanism? Whoosh, he's in a vacuum. And that, I think, is a pretty good depiction.
Yeah.
The magic of genetic memory and sorcery of muscle memory combined with randomness of creative chaos. And I love that, man. That's what I keep coming back to when I'm talking about surfing. Why I'm so adamant about people thinking about surfing, not just as a sport, but as a metaphor for kismet, for positive fate. For positive fate in a world gone crazy with, programmed reaction. Surfing, the football field moves under your feet. The pitch moves under your feet, and you are responding to Neptune. You are in a dance with Neptune. And Kelly Slater can be behind by comboed, and it looks like he's done. 2 minutes left. He catches one wave, and it just came out of nowhere. And he paddles back out, and there's another wave waiting for him, just right in his spot. It's almost like God is like, I want you to win today. Here's this good wave.
It's the opposite of what you said, like the pocket aces.
Yes, exactly. Or the pocket aces smile on you.
Yeah.
And the Greeks, in their mythology, they talked about that all the time. The fate, oh Fortuna. We tend to think of the negative part of it, but sometimes it's just like, whoa.
Because I think this is the thing, for me at least. This is the thing for me, is that the more I try to take shortcuts, the more the other person has pocket aces. The harder I work, my grandfather always used to say, the harder I work, he said, the funny thing is, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yes, yep, that's it.
And my dad used to have this this story. Someone he saw on TV, I think it was like a famous baseball player. He said, look, sports is like this. You just keep working hard. You keep doing the things that you're supposed to do. You just relinquish yourself to your body to do those things, and then when you look up and it's over, you won.
Right. So Rob Zombie was on Joe Rogan this week, and I've never paid attention to Rob Zombie. I mean, I know his songs.
He's an interesting guy.
More Human Than Human, and dig through the ditches and burn through the witches. So I've never watched any of his movies. It's just not my thing. But hearing him talk, I was like, this is not what I expected Rob Zombie to talk like. And he was talking about how House of a Thousand Corpses, how the meeting for that went down. And it was literally like, I got this title. Yeah, House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, oh, what is it going to be about? He's like, oh, it's going to be about, and he's like just made up shit on the top of his head. Like literally just made up shit. And they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. What? And someone is I think even Rogan or somebody or one of them was pointed out, it's like, this is the most anti-motivational story ever. You just half-ass pitch something, but the truth is, it's like what you said, it was because he did his hard work of crafting a very weird musical persona. It's basically Halloween music interpreted through quasi-metal. It's like his music is kind of in between metal and Nine Inch Nails. It's like somewhere in that vicinity, and it's not like the best music of all time or anything, but it gets stuck in your head. So he did a lot of hard work. It's easy to take a shit on these people in mainstream success, but he did a lot of hard work, and he found his brand, which is uniquely Rob Zombie. I don't know. It's just like redneck horror metal. I don't know, whatever. Like, he's not even a redneck. He's from Massachusetts, but like he found this very unique genre, and he did the hard work, and then all of a sudden he's in a pitch meeting and literally just talks out his ass, and he gets the thing. Now, it didn't make it easy because they watched the finished cut of House of a Thousand Corpses, and the exec was like, we need to have a talk tomorrow. And they meet up. And the guy's like, there's no way this can ever be shown in a theater. So he had to wait for years and to buy the rights, I think, and release it himself or something. And then it ended up being a financial success because there's other weirdos like Rob that like that kind of crap. But, hey, I mean, $8 million budget, he made 16. So all that to say, things don't follow a logical, and this is my problem with the JBP manner of teaching self-help or the Dave Ramsey manner of teaching self-help. Nothing really in the real world is A to B. It's very, and JBP has pointed that out too, that there are times where you get up to a cliff and you realize, oh, there's no going forward from here, but at least you know where not to go, right? So you can backtrack, okay, and then we'll take it from there. Let me finish the rest of what he said here.
Okay.
We, the creative types, can count on it. The historic data of such variables occurring and the mathematical data about how variables work is concrete and undeniable. So when our mind suggests something like self-destruction or suicide, the effective reason against it is no. I'm not, and I cannot be satisfied with this conclusion. This is a wrong answer to the fundamental mathematics of existence. I, as a creative type, as someone who is gifted with a focal length that allows me to see things more intimately than others, I must not give up. I must not give up on the seeking of a better answer. And it's not going to emerge from inside my mind, because since my mind has proposed suicide, it means I've run out of variables. So rather than question the validity of my data, I should seek new variables. Because if I do not, then it's not just my loss. And that's a great thing, thinking of yourself as an asset. You got certain things to offer that you know it's not out in the market. Nobody's doing that movie or that song or whatever. And you know it's there. And every time you listen to a pop song, you're like, oh, something inside you is just like, oh, this is not it. You know, this is not the pinnacle of what we were made to make. So you defend yourself, not just as because you're selfish, but because you see that there's value in what you have to bring to the table. So you keep yourself alive as an asset so that once you find that variable, you can get there. It's a loss of all the variables that only that person had ability to stumble upon if you end up knocking yourself off. I genuinely believe that one such person's untimely death has potential to do the incalculable damage to the world as it can send the entire narrative of life hundreds of years back. Weird and ridiculous as this may sound, but I've entertained thought process about time travel, another dimension, and different realities. One of the reasons for the suicides of creative types fitted in a narrative where they are being targeted by evil from the future who does not want humanity to thrive, and it has the ability to eliminate people with the ability to come up with new variables. This evil from the future or from a different reality or dimension does not aim to destroy humanity, but slow us down just enough so we stay at a spot where it fits the evil's narrative. And I think, you don't even have to use time travel for that. There are vested interests who do not want certain types of growth to happen because then this is what, Silicon Valley is always talking about, disruptive tech. This disrupts them out of the monopoly.
Yeah.
They don't want people to communicate with each other. They need to have a mediator.
Well, the Christmas cathedral needs the status quo to continue.
It needs us to be predictable.
Yeah. Well, to the point you were saying earlier, like that made me think of, we've talked about this before, the Pablo Picasso, learn the rules like a pro so you can
break them like an artist.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I think we should, I think these rules, I think it's why me and you like people like Ramsey and JBP, but we don't make it a religion.
Well,
we don't
follow
it like a dogma. We use it like a tool.
That's it. If we can find a way to use it like a tool. Now the difficulty is, how do you make the tool without turning into a tool?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Oh, we heard it here first. All right.
Yeah. How do you make it into a tool without turning into a tool? That's good.
Let's act out the best possible narrative we have and not lose our quest for new variables. Because if we do not find new variables, then we will be like the bacterium who gets in contact with acid, and besides running away from it, gets engulfed in the acid because it does not have the genetic memory of what to do in this new situation. So however comfort it may bring, acid will always be acid. So, yeah, I think there's some good thoughts in there. So, hold on. And in terms of what to hold on to is just, I think that's you could take it a couple different ways. Hold on to your gun and let that gun be a metaphor for your ability to create and destroy. And that you do not have the opportunity to use it now. Like it's just, you need to wait and wait for that other variable. There's some other variable you do not know out in the mist. We don't live in a closed system. And that's the thing I think I want to focus on, is we don't live in a closed system. If you can, you walk out into the mist and you realize there's someone out there, there's a Deus Ex Machina waiting, Right. And that's what the positive side of fate that we're talking about. Like there's a wave waiting with our name on it. There is my favorite surfing story, Derek Dorner out at Waimea Bay, and he has that terrible wipeout, loses his board, comes up. He's just about like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And then he looks, and there's that swim fin right next to him. He's like, okay, thank you. It's like whoever he was thinking, he's probably thinking like Eddie. Eddie would go, the famous Hawaiian lifeguard, or he's thinking Neptune or whatever. Like, thank you, thank you, my man. Whew. Like, there needs to be, only the penitent man will pass. There needs to be a humility before the things you can't understand. Yes. Like in the Bible, there's that, it comes up as, don't bring a railing accusation against even the devil. It's like, don't have this smart ass attitude, like flicking up, you can't do it to me. Like, there's no hubris in this sort of understanding of how fate is. Like, you got to, like, and the Mist kind of gets that right. No snub-nosed 38 is going to be able to take out the giant monsters they're facing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so you have to have a humble approach to this. So those are some thoughts. I hope some of that is constructive. I guess we'll just save our podcast ruminations. I only got halfway through your podcast recommendations, so that'll give us time to probably parse through some of it a little more. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I only got halfway through yours too, but
I only got halfway through mine too.
Okay, it's like 2 hours long, and I had it on one, one and 2 times speed, and still it's hard.
Right. Yeah, eventually we'll get to the point where we can multitask. We'll have like one podcast at 2 times in one ear and one podcast at 2 times in another ear while we're driving down the road with a heads-up display. Oh, yeah.
You talk about... Oh, man. I don't know. That sounds dystopian to me.
Yeah. All right.
There's something. Oh, so did you see what Jared said?
Oh yeah, let's hit the old chat. Just jump right into the chat. Heidel says, Christmas light guy, have you ever snorted cocaine off a hooker's chest?
No.
I'm editing
their toe, but not their chest.
The toe. It's all, you're the toe guy. Yeah, no thanks. I loved you when you were making videos in India. What are you talking about? I always love these. What are you talking about? Well, Alvish, we are talking about trying not to commit suicide. That's what we're talking about. I loved you when you were making... Oh, sorry. I read the same one again. Heidel, can we talk about tyrants, a.k.a. Leo, a.k.a. police? It takes 2 years to be a barber and only 6 months to be a cop. Who do you trust? That's great. The crazy thing about being a barber in the United States of America, you have to have like this certification to cut people's hair. Oh, it's just hilarious.
I don't know. You can just open a shop on the side of the road. Though.
Well, yeah, but not legally. Like you actually, no, you have to have a certification. You have to be certified in order to cut people's hair in the United States of America. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. There's a certification process.
That's weird.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Jared's... I'm sure my barber wasn't certified.
I wish I could have an uncertified barber. Bring it on. Jared says, I'm always encouraged by seeing crap on the screen. I see a bad CBS summer series and say, I could easily write a bad CBS summer series. That's the other good thing.
Yeah, it's the flip side of the flip side.
Yeah, it's the flip side. There's hope. And really, right now, I was watching a little bit of a documentary about Milius. He was real influential to Lucas and Spielberg. Just a wild man. He was the director of Conan the Barbarian. Perfume Nationalist did a podcast with Don Jolly about that film. And dude, this guy, I love him. Like, he's just an absolute madman artist. I have a hard time watching documentaries, so I'm watching it in parts. But yeah, I have no idea why I brought that up. But the fact that he was able to make it in... Oh, that was it. Someone had brought up how at that point in history, right before Lucas and Spielberg really made it, it was this weird time where the studio system just did not know what to do. And so they were all copying each other. And then this fresh blood of weirdo hippies and wild men came into USC and just blew the lid open with this... They weren't angry young men. They were just like... improvisationally weird young men, and they changed the movie industry forever. So we're in that kind of time right now where the movie industry just doesn't know what to do. Like Jared was down here last week and we couldn't even find a movie to watch in theaters. Like they already had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood out.
Yeah, that's frustrating. That goes back to that Teal and that podcast you suggested was Teal and what's his name?
Ruben.
Huh?
Teal and Rubin, Dave Rubin.
Yeah. Where Teal was talking about how everybody in Hollywood or in the Silicon Valley are so, it meshes well actually with that other podcast. But
It
they're
does.
so afraid
Yeah.
of thinking creatively. They want to. They all, it's a group think.
Yeah, that's that whole story. And this is, I mean, it's not even apocryphal. It's just like a meme at this point. The amount of studios that bought a screenplay just to put it on a shelf because they're afraid somebody else could make money with it, but they don't think that they could. So it's better. It's almost like defensive marketing, paying $200,000 for the script or $50,000 for the script just to make sure nobody else makes it. How stupid is that? It makes me angry.
It's pretty smart. But
Whatever. No, it's not.
It's evil. It's evil.
It's a positive feedback loop that, Brett Weinstein talks about.
Yeah.
Heidel talking about fleshlights. I will always bring up every time fleshlights come up that without fleshlights, we would not have the Joe Rogan Experience. They were the first sponsors of the show.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
There you go. Well, checkmate, trads. All right.
What's a trad? Is that like a
traditionalist?
Chad?
No, it's a traditionalist. It's like, we need to go back to the old ways. All become Catholic or Orthodox or pick your brand of Protestant, I guess. Whatever. Ford, knowing and doing are two completely different animals. True. I was thinking, this is so trolling. I was thinking of joining Scientology, except they don't take free thinkers. Yeah, that's true. This is a shit post, but at the same time, there's so much truth to it. I was an iron worker for 15 years as a professional, and I recommend heavy drinking or drug use to maintain a positive attitude. And I can tell you, at the working class, blue collar level, like where I'm at now, that is 100% true. It's alcohol and drugs are the real oil that keeps the machine going.
Natty Light, baby.
That's right. In our area, it's Natty Light, and Fireball probably. Walking beams at 200 plus feet above dirt brings a new perspective into play. 100%. Yeah. 100% true. There's something, and I really do think that, we've found a way to basically make a hobby out of our fitness and out of our adventure, when really we need to get back to feeling that danger in the workplace. Yeah. And that sounds weird, but
it's the thought that just gripped me, though, is that the Natty Light and drugs, it does help people with the machine, but I think what it happens is it's like that guy's medication, Yeah. It turns off your brain enough, and so it keeps you in the machine.
It's Ubik in the bad way, right?
Yeah.
It's the blue pill that keeps you
in the machine,
tethered. Yeah. And I was they listen to country a lot of times. So some of these songs that come on, I'm like, you could almost say it's a conspiracy theory, that it's just like some of these songs sound just like the brainwashing programming in Brave New World. It's like, I'll get my drink on, I'm gonna party on. I mean, like they're literally like Mad Libs,
Yeah.
They're just using the same terminology over and over, and it's always about being drunk, it's always about finding a chick, and then every now and then they'll offset it with this, pious religious sentiment song.
Yeah.
It's this binge purge of like sanctimony and libertinism, and it's just basically it's like, ooh, Pied Piper, or like the Hansel and Gretel thing. Ooh, here's another little crumb for you. Keep following me. So
yeah, it's funny. I work at work. I sit next to the receptionist, and she listens to nothing but country music, which I'm okay with. But she's teetotaler, and
yeah, the irony, right? Yeah, it's
well, but it's not just the irony. She's like, at one point, she's like, "Oh, he's singing about alcohol again. Why do they always sing about alcohol?" And I had to think about it. I was like, "Yeah, they do always. What is it? What? Well, I just said something, some rude little like ironic quip, like, have you ever drank alcohol? Like,
right."
If you drank it, you'd know. But it is a good question. But
it's
I think
almost like
to what you're saying.
It's almost like a religious, like, musical experience. It's just like singing the same. There's almost like hymns to the vice signaling masses, you know? And like people will complain about how bad hip hop has gotten. I'm like, country's like the other side of the coin. They're singing about the same stuff. They're singing about how they're, you know, badasses and drink a lot, you know, and get a lot of chicks. Like, I don't know. It just sounds the same. But the problem is that so much of it's so perfunctory. It's not like, it's not art. It's very formulaic. It's just like, ping, 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 ping.
But in that, I think what I was thinking about it is like, I don't even know if they all drink. I think it's a language.
Yeah.
You know, like by saying my alcohol, you're saying, you're conveying a sort of a pain. That, you know, you're conveying Ubik. You're talking about Ubik.
Yeah,
you know, you're
right. I know.
Very common Ubik.
Yeah, it's just that line that separates art from just mere consumerism
crap
subsidy. You know, it's just subsidizing consumerism both ways. You know, it's an Ouroboros positive feedback loop in which, you know, we're paying them to make the stuff and they're making it just to get paid, and we're listening to it just so that we can forget about things.
Yeah.
You know, it's that type of catharsis that we're not really a fan of. You know, we're looking for catharsis that actually changes us, not just that's, you know, a catalyst for something like that, you know, we end up being changed by, not just something that keeps us tooling along, I guess. Gyro says, regarding JBPs, it's like, I forget who said this, saying that if you can't save yourself from drowning, you can't save others. Yeah, I know.
No, that's BS.
Yeah,
No.
I disagree. A lot of people are dogpiling on him.
First of all, what's wrong with being addicted to pills?
Well, I mean, it's not what we want to emulate. I mean, I certainly don't want to be addicted.
No, but like, I'm sorry, he's not a perfect human being. I think the fact that, you know, he's working through it, you know, like we all have problems, man. We all have addictions.
Yeah, the fact that, and that was what my point of view was, like, I've never agreed with him on everything anyway, but the fact that he checked himself into rehab says that he's trying to work it out. We've all been hypocrites at some point or another, and so when I see like Taleb dogpiling on him and being like, "Oh, this piece of shit," I'm just like, dude, we don't know what your problem is. You know, it's going to be something even worse.
Yeah, it's not. See, here's the thing about people calling it hypocrisy, is that if we're both pointing at truth, if we're both trying to discover truth, and I stumble and fall and my flashlight goes out, that doesn't make me a hypocrite. I still get up and try to find the truth, you know? Like,
right.
Maybe JBP he's not trying to proselyte. That's the problem with, he's not religious in his proselytizing or his you know, his discussions. He's just pointing at the truth and saying, look, here it is. And if he falls and makes a mistake, so what? I don't love him because I need him to be perfect.
And it is a vestigial, like, sainthood notion again. Like, I feel like people are acting like religious people here. Like, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm the religious person, and all you idiots are acting like these dumb people that think a saint has to be perfect, or that it is a sainthood thing. It's like listening to Tchaikovsky. It's, I can't listen to it anymore because he did something I didn't like. Oh, let's redact that statue. Let's pull that thing down. No, that person doesn't exist. Blah, blah, blah. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Oh, he's a hypocrite. Like, you're not, dumbass? Like, seriously, you're not a hypocrite?
Yeah.
Golly, look in the mirror, man.
Yeah.
Ford's triggered. He's just defending his hero. No, he's not my hero. Like, I've disagreed with him about a lot of things. That does not negate the fact that he helped a lot of people from not committing suicide. Like, that to me is, I would rather the enemy be suicide than trying to scapegoat somebody and try to blame everything on that person. Like, that's just the same thing an SJW does.
Yeah.
Like, that's the same.
He is my hero, but look, we need different definitions of heroes. Like, come on. There's no such thing as a hero. Like, there's a difference between a hero and a savior. I don't look at JBP as a savior.
I don't even look at him as my guru. You know, I'm not his chela. I'm not his disciple. Like, it's like you said, it's a tool.
Yeah.
Like, what he's given is a tool. You can use part of it, and you can mix and match with something else. Like, I never even made it through 12 Rules because it was too stilted. Like, it was too formulaic. Like, I just got bored. I got bored with it. So, Reading JBP does not mean that I only have to dance in the JBP lane. Yeah. Like I can go read Poglia and be like, wow, this is good. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to worship her as my savior either. You know?
And see, that's the wonderful thing about the market of ideas. It's like
market. Yes, not the temple.
No, it's the market of ideas, not the temple. And so it's the wonderful thing. If JBP, struggles with drug addiction, we say like, yeah, man, how can we help you? We don't say like, ha,
I knew he was a fake. Golly, you know what that is, right? That's the mob mentality. That is like witch hunting. It's just so stupid how we're still doing the scapegoating thing. I think we all need to read a lot more Rene Girard, apparently, because we haven't learned this lesson 2,000 years after Jesus claimed to be a sacrificial lamb. 2,000 years, and we're still finding sacrificial lambs and scapegoats to blame all of society's problems on all the time. How dumb are we collectively as societies, whether we're Christian or not? Like, how dumb are we that we have to find somebody to pin all the sins of a nation on?
Yeah, it's just, I think the thing is for me, when I say, what's wrong with being hooked on drugs, like, there are so many worse things, like, and if they said like, oh, the whole time he's been, something terrible. I don't even want to speak it into existence, but something, you can think of way worse things. Like, oh, this guy's going through the worst time of his life where his daughter is sick and his wife is dying of cancer. And he took extra pills and got high. Oh, wow, man. I don't want to listen to him anymore. What? I don't understand. Like, what's the big deal?
Well, it's just the same. And this is part of the problem of the whole muckraking journalism as truth-telling, that it's yellow journalism is what it used to be called. And it is just a cowardly sort of approach to life. It's getting clout off of rubbing other people's sins in their face,
Yeah.
But that's the one time that the Pharisees' words to Jesus are true. Physician, heal thyself. Are you without sin? Like even the people that were the biggest legalist lawyers of that time, when they're about to stone a woman caught in adultery, and the law of that day says you're supposed to stone the person, Jesus says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. But we still stone people metaphorically all the time. Like as soon as somebody, and this is the whole thing with Me Too. It's just the same mentality. It's just like we keep, Me Too didn't work. Okay, that one's shipwrecked. Let's find something else where we can scapegoat people. He's a drug addict. Yeah. And we're in a system that has made drug addiction the way to get through this clown world hellscape that we're in. Like, you're not addicted to drugs. Well, what are you addicted to? Alcohol? What are you addicted to? Porn? What are you addicted to that's the oil to make you still be a cog in the machine?
And I think that goes in, and we'll continue to tease it out, but that goes into the complicated nature of Ubik. And that's why we bring it up. That's why we talk about these things that we need to help us get us through, that we know are not enough, that are not good. They're not good. They're not evil, but they're not good.
They're not ideal. And I think
they're not ideal.
Yeah. And that word, the word sin in Greek, in that time period where the Greek philosophers were around, and the Christian writers were around, they were using that Koine Greek, and the word meant missing the mark. Mm-hmm. And we tend to think of sin as like this thing that's going to erupt, like, it's a bad thing. It's an active evil. But no, actually sin can be just like being 2 degrees off. And as like in this construction job, I'm realizing you get that 1 degree off. I think I mentioned this on the trim going up the stairwell. That 1 degree off becomes a foot after 20 feet. Missing the mark is a big deal. But we soft pedal it. And so we know that not all the pieces are fitting in our society. And so it's like we want one person to blame, but it's not one person. We're all a few degrees off here and there, and that adds up once you get to the civilizational level. So that's my problem with scapegoating. It is not a feasible way to go forward from here, just to find one thing to blame. No. We're all to blame. We're all contributing to this. And the best thing we can do, and that's when JBP's method still holds. Whether or not he lived up to it just shows how difficult it is to be a person who's actually good. But his message still holds in that you have got to start with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think he got too proud. I think he started taking on too much stuff. It's too stressful. Like, I don't want to follow that method. This rock star approach to the world, gallivanting everywhere, being on this, being on that, got to take a more measured approach, because you cannot, a human being is not meant to be a god. And
well, we need a Sabbath, in more
rest.
ways than
Yeah.
one.
And we need community, and we need to remember, we need to be brought down a peg. And probably JBP could have benefited when he was getting in that argument with Taleb earlier. Like, I actually was more in agreement with Taleb in this argument they had. It was about cross-cultural communication, of all things. And JBP was talking out of turn about, international policy. And he was wrong. Like, JBP was wrong. Taleb was right. And at that point, JBP, he should have listened, I think. He should have listened. They should have had a dialogue and talk it out. But I've seen JBP do more of that than I've seen Taleb. Taleb just think he's a god among men. And, that's... Hubert's going to catch up with you too, dude. So just, watch yourself.
Yeah.
Calling it here first.
Have fun laughing. Yeah. But JBP has talked often about the fact that he realizes he's riding a wave and it's going to crash at some point. The fact that this is the crash, like, I love the guy all the more for it.
I mean, it is fitting.
Come on.
Yeah, and that's the other thing for me. I was a self-righteous, know-it-all Christian going over to India, and I had this crash. I've had multiple crashes in which I realized I am an asshole. I have no idea what in the world is going on. Like, I don't understand this culture. And then the more I felt like I didn't understand India and its specificity, when I came back, I didn't understand here even more. I was like, just send me back to India. I'm so confused right now. So we're all scrambling for something to hold on to, like Improbable Insane. Just like the worst thing to hold on to is scapegoating, because that ironically is the very thing that movie is about. The crazy Christian lady who looks for people to sacrifice to the mist and kills them. And that's what we do as a culture. It's still Rene Girard's mimetic violence, just applied over and over and over. We're just, and thankfully we're not stoning these people anymore, but we're trial by media, and then that person is ruined for the rest of their lives.
Yep. Well, sir.
All right, let me just read the last couple comments, and we'll need to wrap it up here. Zerny, proud metalhead, progressive metal only. Look it up if you don't know about it. I don't know about progressive metal. I'll have to check it out. Orton says there is no one true, clean, pure path. We must vibrate up, down, left, right, alive. A flat line is dead. A flat line is dead. It takes a musician, which Orton is. It takes a musician to put it that way. That's great. A flat line is dead. Every tone is an oscillation. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
Gyra says SJW is truly the modern day witch hunting, but I think we're all guilty of it, man. We're all guilty of it, finding one thing to blame. And for a lot of us, it ends up being blaming the SJW. But the SJW doesn't exist without Puritans in the United States of America. And Camille Paglia, she brings attention to that. And like the sentence in her intro talking about Puritans, I'm like, that is one of the things that makes me so mad about modern Christendom in the United States way of it playing out, and why I think so many young men, especially in Western culture, are going back to Orthodox or Catholicism is because they have much more appreciation of art and this unspoken richness that Puritans didn't have room for. Zerny says that something people like to do is to mark people as good or bad, as they can't possibly be some of each. People talk a lot about the bad things they did and think that completely negates the good they did, however large the good and however small the bad. The bad always has to overshadow the good and be what defines that person. And that's it. If it bleeds, it leads. The truth is, people aren't perfect. There is good and bad about every person in the world. No one is entirely of each side of the coin, even those we regard as heroes. And that is something good to keep in mind. Improbable One says, #random, there is no mention of pure evil in Hindu mythology. There is no pure evil. The Asuras are also God's devotees and just as human, but just flawed. Whew, that's interesting. Pandemonium. So pandemonium basically means everyone assigning demons to the other culture's gods. That's what the Zoroastrians mean when they said that. So the Zoroastrians believe that Ahura Mazda is the high god. and the Devas were the devils. And the Hindus believed that the Asuras, similar to Ahura, the Asuras were the devils, and the Devas were the gods. And so it gets very difficult to parse what is good and what is bad when we're always trying to scapegoat the other people's heroes. Yeah, that's a good point. And this is why the Mahabharata shouldn't be overlooked in terms of storytelling, because there is a lot of color in there. It's not just black, white, and gray. It's like, whoa, man. I mean, it's Game of Thrones-esque in terms of its complexity of character and what is good and bad.
Yeah. Amen. Well, I've got to go. I'm
right.
late for my podcast. If anybody who likes fantasy football, join us at youtube.com/rotohackers.com.
Okay, until next time, keep it creative, cross-cultural, constructive, and keep an eye out for Kismet, for fate to smile upon you. Godspeed, y'all.